Hey everybody, Jay and Brian here back again. Today we're going to continue our discussion from last week where we were going over your DISC Plus. That's the DISC and the values. Brian, say hey.
Hey Jay, how you doing, man?
I'm good. So again, I'm Jay Niblick. I'm the founder and CEO of Intermetrics. We got Bryan Arzani with us. He's the president of Intermetrics North America. And we come to you guys once a week at least, try to give you some educational content. Brian came up with a really cool idea that I fell in love with, and it's really the way we both operate, which is we're going to give you 20 minutes. And after the introduction here, I'm going to start that 20 minutes because if you've got an hour to listen to an educational webinar, I can already tell you why you're not making money. So the focus of these is to help you grow a profitable practice. And we stopped right at 20 minutes last time. We'll do it again, middle of the sentence. And we were going to pick up where we left off. You should have your DISC Plus profile in your hand. And if not, you hadn't seen the last one, go back and watch last week's where we talked about the DISC. And this week, we're going to talk about the values section, how it applies to you and what you're trying to do in growing your profitable consulting or coaching practice. So, Brian, anything you want to add?
No, I think the big thing here, just that, so many folks drink the Kool-Aid and think that DISC is the end all be all. And, it's a great instrument. It talks about the how, right? How we approach the 4 different dimensions. But again, when I first encountered this back when I was working for General Electric in the 90s, my first reaction to that was, man, I want to change myself. I need to be that high D like everybody else in the room that I thought was so cool. And reality is I spent more energy trying to be something that I wasn't. And over the last 15 years of really truly embracing this genius piece, you know what? I dig the fact that I'm not a high D. I can adapt and adjust and become very intense. Obviously, as a collegiate athlete, I was intense because it was in a combat type of a sport, being wrestling. But the reality is that I am so much better just being me and staying in that consistent genius of what I have. So please don't get done with that and go, man, I don't like my profile. If you have that response, you've got a long ways to go in terms of embracing who you are, because the less energy you spend trying to be what you're not, the more energy you have in pursuit of building a business that is attractive and attracts clients that want to be like you. So you got to eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff, and it's got to become intrinsically connected to you. So what allows me to adapt and adjust is exactly what we're going to talk about today. And I'm so excited to talk about it because we talk about that value piece, the why we do what we do. Now we're getting into that meat, that the energy, the gas in the gas tank, the horsepower, the energy, that piece behind that, Jay. I think I'm so grateful that we have the ability to have that DISC Plus.
Yeah, we call it DISC Plus because it's the DISC Plus values. And a lot of people, it's a misnomer like Kleenex. Well, there's a lot of different discs out there. This is our modern interpretation of it. There's a million reasons why it's better. We won't get into it because we're not selling today, we're educating. Main point Brian really tapped on is in last week's call, we described this, and this is a core ethos here at Intermetrics, and it's captured in that book, What's Your Genius, that we put out. It's that we studied a lot of these best performers, and we see people coming out trying to be consultants, and they look at what the best practices are of other consultants. Now, from a logistics standpoint or a pricing standpoint or a methodology standpoint, that may be okay because it's transportable. Everybody could set their pages in this order and have this stage and then that stage. The way they build their business, the way they deliver, if they're trying to copy what someone else does, both how and why, and that's what we're talking about. DISC, let me share my screen here. There we go. DISC is how, and the values is why. And if you're not aware of your why you want to do things, what really drives you, and how, your natural behavioral talents based on your neural networks, you're going to be trying to do what somebody else does. And all that ends up leading to is you trying to do them. No joke.
And Jay, I think it's so transparent. I mean, when you're authentic, you spend no energy trying to adapt or adjust to your audience. And so one of the things I tell consultants so often, and when they're building their business and when we're helping them to create a business that fits them, because that's the biggest question we get from our consultants that are coming on board as certified Intermetric consultants, is they ask me the question, well, what type of business should I build, right? And we go back to their values and go, let's figure out what drives you. And the less time I spend trying to figure out how to, like you said, Jay, do somebody else's business, the more often we can spend trying to create something that feeds us. And if it feeds me, that means I'm running towards something. And I look back like at a 2 or 3-year-old, how often a 2 or 3-year-old can run around the house, just nonstop. And within a brief period of time, they're back and they're re-energized and they're running again. When we help our consultants in our process of bringing them on board and helping them to kind of decide what it is, it's just like being that 2 or 3-year-old again. They literally run around their consulting practice in their respective market areas, and they run so hard, but they get done and they're like, you know what? I feel rejuvenated. I feel energized. Why? Because we're getting in touch with what drives them. Again, just live, eat, breathe, and sleep what you do.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be number one is self-awareness of it. You have to understand them and have some nice metrics behind them. That's the name, inner metrics. You've got to then be authentic to them. You have to take those and say, all right, he's trying to go about it in this fashion. She's trying to do it this way. Some book said, here's how you go out and do these. If you're not a public speaker, if you're not somebody that's going to be a great content writer or creator, don't go out and try to use those marketing techniques. So we talked about how it's more the behavioral characteristics. You tend to be very fast-paced, slow-paced, very extroverted or introverted. How quickly do you make decisions? How dominant, decisive are you? Attentive to detail, these kind of personality characteristics. The values today, we'll go through the 7, and we want to just kind of plug into each one how it may or may not support or detract from your success. So these were created all the way back. The original theory was Dr. Edward Spronger back in 1926. It's been studied thousands of times since. Vernon, Alport, Lindsay in the 50s, Rokeach, lots of different PhDs and people have studied these. It's been incredibly proven and established as a theory. Everything that may motivate any of the 7 billion people on the planet fits into one of these big 7 buckets. So however you're describing it, it's going to fit into one of these 7. And you can see my screen, right, Brian?
You bet. Yeah. I think the key here is a lot of times folks will look at this and say, man, am I going to fall inside that norm? Jay, you want to talk just briefly about the standard deviation and just how to understand that? We have a lot of consultants that we work with that are trying to maybe go a little bit deep into that. But if you just give us a high level touch on how we come up with that.
Yeah, you'll understand why I say this soon, because this profile of a fake person would probably want to understand that because they have. So here's the norm in the middle. This is actually the mean. The average is 3 different types. So this is the mean type of an average in the middle, and there's 1 standard deviation above is the top of the box, 1 standard deviation below. So there's 3 sigmas here, but we're only going to look at the first one and we mark it. What we want to know is what's the strongest drivers. So it's less about the score and more about relativity. So which one of these is higher above the box? We don't reproduce that on the other 6, but you can tell this is the norm inside this box. And because it's statistics, these boxes are not all the same. This norm here for political is a lot tighter. The standard deviations are much tighter than they are for, let's say, altruism. Regulatory is the tightest. If you're inside this box, you're really basically as motivated by that dimension as the average person, the majority of people on the planet. If you're below it, well, you're 1 standard deviation or more, less motivated than the average person. Or if you're above it, you're more than motivated than most people. So,
and to your point, Jay, it really doesn't matter in terms of where they are at. And so when you're looking at your own profile, if you're above or below, when we're talking about helping you to create and co-author your consulting practice, we're going to go back to exactly what Jay just said, which is what are your strongest drivers? Because those are the areas that we're going to run towards. We're going to seek with using the least amount of energy, because this is where we get our payoffs from.
Yeah, and these statements down here are variable based on the scores, but let's just walk through. His point being, I don't care. This is me and my motivations. What are my drives or inspiration? What's going to empower me and make me more energetic in doing something as opposed to less?
And if I can add something real quick, Jay, I think one of the things that we hear today right now in the human resource community, as our consultants are going out there, they're hearing a tremendous amount of questioning from the human resource professionals out there or leaders in businesses that our consultants are going to, you, the consultant, are going to be going out. They're going to be talking about what do you have in terms of engagement, right? How do you create engagement? And some consultants, as they build their business, are around engagement. What has been really cool and what we've heard is feedback from a lot of our clients that the consultants are working with is that this instrument just carved out in and of itself, actually, rather than saying, hey, what's the engagement of the organization, this is almost what we consider the personalized engagement. What engages me, right? What's the reason why I go in? And it's been powerful.
That's why it's important for you, the consultant or coach, to understand these things. That's the self-awareness part. So if you're out there reading a book or listening to some program that's telling you you have to be focused on always the monetary gains because they put you into sales mode, that's good. Makes sense. Sounds rational. But if economic, which is the drive that really focuses on the economic value, the ROI, monetary gain in many cases, that's not going to inspire you. So you're not going to be engaged, even though you're trying to do exactly what the last person told you they were doing, because that's what made them successful. Brian and I have both started seven-figure businesses. We struggled to learn this stuff early on, but knowing it, because I've been exposed to this for 20 years now. So very early on, 19 years since I started Intermetrics, and Brian very early on got exposed to the same concepts as well. So the aesthetic, walking through real quick, the aesthetic is the drive in the morning, once you get you out of bed, to achieve balance, harmony, peace. It's not just about pretty things. Many times, if you like aesthetically pleasing things, environments, paints, decorations, it's because there's symmetry to it. So it's really the drive for symmetry and balance. So green initiatives, things like that.
And also, too, Jay, to add to that, a lot of folks that score very high in aesthetic, they want harmony also in their relationships. So they're driven to create that connectivity in a lot of different areas. And if you, as a CIC or a future certified intermetric consultant, have high aesthetic, then you may be driven to create harmony within the organization, within teams, et cetera.
And you won't like a contentious environment. So let's talk about economic. This is the desire for economic gain. It's pragmatic. Some people will label this, I think originally one of the 50s researchers named it utilitarian or utilitarianistic. It's a very pragmatic approach. Oftentimes money is an easy marker because it shows clear ROI. If we were to rename it from economic, we would rename it ROI. It's how do I turn 2 into 4? How do I use the resources that I have and grow the business? And that transfers over into what I'm helping my clients, whatever that corporation is that I'm consulting to, how do they increase their ROI? Individualistic, it's the drive to be free, to have sovereignty over your own self. Individuals, it doesn't necessarily always translate to it's all about me. It's not a narcissistic dimension. It's just one of the things that desire you really are driven by. If this is your highest, as you get out of bed in the morning, try to figure out how do I make sure I can stay independent. A lot of our consultants
and have that uniqueness, dig in that opportunity, to be recognized as being unique.
It's what drives a lot of people to start their own consulting practice because they're tired of being an employee for 20 years, 10 years, 1 year, whatever. And they're like, I want my own sovereignty. I'll make my own hours. I'll be my own boss. Speaking of boss, the political drive is the desire to be the boss, not just over yourself, but others. So sometimes you'll see in sales a high economic, individualistic, and political and outside sales because they're looking for commissions. They're outside sales. They love the freedom. But the political sometimes makes people wonder, wait, why is that? They don't lead anybody. They're not a sales manager, but they actually control the sale in the prospect. They're taking charge. So high politicals are a drive to take charge. They'll be the first in the room, whereas the individualistic will be the first in the room to go, thanks for telling us how to do that. By the way, real quick, could I change that order? If I wanted, could I make it purple instead of red? Is that okay? They just always want to be different. In that same room, the political is the first one when you say, all right, guys, we need you to buddy up into teams. One of you is going to represent the first place political at 90s, the one who goes, I'll take charge. I'll be the team. I don't care. I'll do it. They volunteer. They actively seek for ways to lead. Altruism, pretty standard definition. It's all about serving. If this is your highest, you wake up in the morning wondering, how do I give? How do I help? How do I serve others? Regulatory is one of the most difficult ones to understand because it's kind of new, and it's the desire for maintaining traditions. Some of the original researchers called it traditional. And it's regulation. It's a desire, let's say you've got police officers, law enforcement, some military branches and work in the military. Quality assurance officers. These are people that wake up and go, There are I's to be dotted, T's to be crossed, things to be done the way they're supposed to be done. And damn it, I'm going to make sure the process is being followed. And anybody that tries to break them better, get out of my way. So lots of regulation. And lastly, theoretical. High theoreticals, knowledge. They just want to learn. So if you're very high theoretical and you get into a role where they say, hey, 3 months in, good job. You did it. You learned everything you need to learn. Now go repeat it for the next 10 years. That very moment, your engagement starts to dip. And, we see people that are lucky enough to have their top 1, 2, 3 all connected to their job. They're satisfied. The job that they have allows them to satisfy their economic desire. It allows them to satisfy their individualistic and their political. That's just nirvana. That's many people don't. So they're high altruistic and they're nothing at work that allows them to serve others. Their job doesn't do anything that's really benefiting society. And you see them volunteering all the time after work. Even if it does, they still may, because they're still hungry for just a little bit more. They want to go help this person or this group or something, because their job alone doesn't really satiate the desire because they're a super high altruistic. So, Bryan, you want to walk through maybe some ideas on connecting this to your role? What if a few of these, we've got 5 minutes and 5 seconds. So
you bet. So a lot of times when I'm working with and we're developing, consultants, let's just say, for example, this was a consultant's profile. Maybe you have a high theoretical. One of the tendencies can be that maybe I'm driven to learn. And so sometimes I'm getting ready to get ready because I don't have enough information, and I'm looking for people that may appreciate, how knowledgeable I am about information. In terms of our profitable consultant, manual, as we look at that, being an education-based, marketer is an incredibly powerful, piece. Well, what if that motivator's low? Well, then I'm going to learn what I need to learn only for the application of knowledge. And so then finding an opportunity to create a firm or your own practice that allows you to, have individuals that, are going to appreciate more of the application versus the lengthy explanation. As we look at, the top 2 or 3 motivators, those are you can call them the twin towers, or the 3, pillars of power that drive you. It's important also that you look at your lower ones, because those are things that you may have a tendency to either be demotivated or maybe run away from. So as we work with, let's say, if you have high aesthetic and high economic, I'm driven, and these are key words to use as you think about putting your own, mission statement out there. I'm driven. If this was my profile, I'd say I'm driven to gain knowledge and information, theoretical, so that I can win and create harmony and peace. I typically become demotivated by helping people that do not want to help themselves, which is low altruist. And, I can take charge or not given the situation. So if we were working with this consultant, they say, why am I struggling in, trying to attract new business? Well, maybe on a day in and day out basis, my high aesthetic, because I may not have as much awareness of it, that inconsistency, that lack of harmony and lack of creating the steady connection of all the things going on, I'm going to be battling inside my own heart. So as you look at your profile, finding the 1 or 2 the motivators that really stand out, creating a statement that says, I'm driven by, and then if it's high political, I'm driven by taking charge in a unique way. So individualistic political. I'm driven to help other people to create order and structure, high altruist regulatory. So when we're starting to connect those pieces, you've got to be able to look at your own profile and speak from a personal conviction of how to explain your story. The worst thing you can do is only speak third party. It's important that you look at your own. So for me, I can look back at my life. I'm a high altruist, high economic, high political, high individualistic. They're all very strong. And I'm low regulatory, low theoretical, low aesthetic. So I only like to learn the minimum amount that I need to learn so that I can help other people. I do want to be in charge in a unique way so I can win, and I create chaos on a regular basis. Why? Because I'm low aesthetic. So the challenge for you at this very moment, is to take your motivators and create your statement just like I created, and start to practice it so it just rolls off your tongue. Then you can convey from a position of conviction. Don't you think, Jay? I mean, is it important that these folks that are looking at this video here today are be able to take their values and say, this is what I'm driven by, and this is what I'm demotivated by?
Yeah, and your report has a whole lot more. Just going back, this is just the disc, and it gives you 22 pages of key statements, these bullets are all what this score means to you. Same thing, going down ideal job climates. It's spelled out for you in the report. So how you prefer to learn, how do you prefer to communicate? All these things from the disc, there's application sheets. When you get into the values, same thing. The education is there. It goes over what they're all about. It gives you your unique scores. What Bryan has been talking about is, the key to learning what those are. Reading the report, it's in there. It's another visual way for some of the aesthetics to plot those 7. But it talks about the general traits, key strengths, the motivational insights, training and learning insights, and continual improvement insights for each of the 7. Those 5 categories are just for the aesthetic dimension. These are the reports that our consultants are using with their clients. And in many regards, they're sometimes just reading through some of these as they're learning how to help them apply it. 33 seconds left to go, Bryan. So
Yep.
Give a call to action and a wrap-up statement.
You bet. Here's the thing. I think as you're watching this video, if you're watching this video, it's about partnership. It's not about product. And so one of the things that we do know how to do is we do know how to support our consultants. And we grow consulting practices all the time. Not why? Because we've done it. Jay and I have both done it from scratch. We've consistently figured out how to do it. And being relevant tomorrow is the key. It's not about today. It's about the clients that you're going to have. Being able to continuously tell your story in a way that resonates with others so that you can spend more time serving and growing versus scrambling and reacting. That's what we do here at Intermetrics. It's part of what we do every day, man. So Jay.
There's our timer. Guys, we don't do more than 20 minutes, so go sell some shit. Bye.
Later.